Welcome to the Thunder. I'm Shooter, and that's Thomas Schooley figuring out that this shit just doesn't happen automatically on We the Thunder. I think the Lightning found that out tonight. That shit doesn't just happen automatically. I am en route home. I had a calling. I had to go to the game tonight. And Thomas, as you can tell, is in charge of the stream tonight. But hey, we can't get much worse than that fumbled start. So Lightning just lost 4-3, shootout loss, or not even a shootout loss. Lost in what was it? The last minute of overtime.
Yeah.
Were we in the last minute? In a game where the Lightning gave up 2 goals in the first couple minutes of the game, and we're just playing catch up the rest of the game. And when they caught up, they couldn't get over the hump to beat the Toronto Maple Leafs, which is unfortunate because this game could have propelled them into first place in the division. But that's okay. They still get a point. Toronto gets 2, makes it that much harder for the Bolts to clinch that first place spot. Still possible, but definitely a little bit hard. Well, actually, way harder now that they lost this head-to-head. And we started off by finding out Jake Gensel was scratched, and you saw Yanni Gord kind of moved up and took his spot. I guess Jake Gensel had some family issues. I don't know what
Baby on the way. Third player with the baby. I don't know why these guys don't plan it a little bit better, but they need to plan it around hockey season.
You would think, hey, at least it wasn't a playoff game that he missed, and I thought Yanni Gord played pretty well in his spot there on the front or on that top line. But man, yeah, giving up those 2 goals right away. You know, the way I kind of think about this game is the Lightning. I think this is a good thing for the Lightning. Like, you can't go into the playoffs and play like that and give up those 2 early goals and expect to win a playoff game. And even when they fought back, they saw how hard it was to fight back against a good team, and at the end, it wasn't enough. So, hey, better now than in the playoffs.
First goal was 113 into the game when Marner got Hagel did a bad pass, and Marner got it, jumped on it, 113. Then Nyes, who ended up getting with a hat trick with winning it in overtime, he scored at 3:33 in the first off of another turnover. So they still have that turnover problem that has kind of plagued them all season. And tonight they got burned on those turnovers.
Yeah, and Toronto turned the puck over too. I think the difference is Toronto makes you pay. The Lightning, they don't put the puck in the back of the net enough. I mean, you saw, I think the Lightning, without a doubt, had way better and way more chances to score this game. But they didn't. They made Toronto's backup, I guess you could say 1B goalie instead of backup, because they kind of split
the
wall. Um, but they made him look good. And Toronto was blocking shots like crazy. I wanted to see the Bolts hit more, but I bet if you look up hits, I bet the Bolts did out hit Toronto in this game. Um, so losing to Toronto, what is that? Three? They're 0-3 against Toronto this season.
Yep.
If you've watched hockey long enough, you know that that really doesn't mean anything. There's been a ton of playoff series where teams have not won a single game in the regular season against the team they're playing and have come back to take care of business in the playoffs and take that team out of the playoffs. So it really doesn't mean that. But the Lightning are going to have to figure out how to beat Toronto, most likely if they're going to win the Stanley Cup. And
And
I
you
give
also
Toronto credit.
I know you can't see comments. Oh, he just went offline. So hopefully we'll get Shooter back here. But let me point out here what Josh says is that Glendening for faceoffs. Glendening got injured, believe at the end of that first period, and went down the tunnel and never ended up coming back. So with Glendening missing for those faceoffs are huge. That's really what Glendening is there for. So that's something we have to work on. I'm right here. Shooter's off right now, but I'll say we have a hard time with the teams that we chase for in the division. It's true. I mean, we can't seem to beat Ottawa. We can't seem to beat Toronto. Florida has been back and forth all season. So it's those teams. And I see New Jersey was the team that clinched tonight. So I'm New Jersey really doesn't seem to be any kind of scare for the Lightning. So, he's back. So, Shooter, real quick, I did these why comments Josh said with Glendening out. We did see him at the end of the first period. He ended up going down the tunnel injured, never came back. We missed him for the faceoffs. I'm right, said we're having a hard time beating people in our own division, and people were chasing, i.e., Ottawa, Toronto. We haven't been able to beat them. 1-2 against Florida this year. And then Chris Cole here says the 4-minute power play was the killer, which they did get that go-ahead goal during that 4-minute power play. And Hetty came back and tied it towards the end of the game.
So what was the deal with that power play? It was Tavares that got hit in the face
He
with
was bleeding.
Lilleberg. So he
Yep.
really got hit that hard. It wasn't just Tavares bit his lip and got the extra minor.
No, he had quite a bit of blood.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff's going to happen. I mean, that's just kind of bad luck right there. And you can't give a team as good as Toronto back-to-back power plays like that. And that's the crappy part about that one. Luckily, they didn't score 2 goals, but they scored in the first 2 minutes. So they continued to stay on the power play. But I give the Bolts a lot of credit for fighting back and getting the point, which isn't that big of a deal, but it counts for something. And putting themselves in a good chance to win this game. And I mean, if you look at the first half of that overtime, what was it? Point, breakaway, saved. Um, Sorelli had, I think it was a rebound chance, prime scoring opportunity, saved. Kucherov gets a really good chance, misses the net completely. So they had their chances to win the game, and even towards the end of the game, they just had pretty bad puck luck in this game compared to Toronto. And
But even Toronto had some good breakaways, though. One towards the end there with Nylander that Vasi stopped. Vasi had some big saves coming down the end, and that's what we want to see going into the playoffs. They both have 3 games left. Toronto is now 3 points ahead of us. So it looks like we'll probably finish number 2 in the division.
Yeah, it's not
It's
over. For the race for first place isn't over yet, but it just got almost impossible to happen. So, and that's fine. At the end of the day, you're going to have to beat Florida or Toronto or both to win the Stanley Cup. So it doesn't really matter. They've got to figure out how to beat these teams. And we know Florida knows how to play in the playoffs, but injuries are going to be a serious problem for them, I think.
They got
Um,
all three of their guys back last night.
of course, perfect timing.
So
And then,
Toronto has the Canadians, the Hurricanes, and the Sabres left on their schedule. Their 3 games. Our 3 games are who are they? Detroit, Buffalo, Detroit, and who's the last one? Is it the Rangers again?
no, Panthers.
Oh, Panthers. That's right.
I think we've got Rangers one more game in New York, no?
Yeah. So we have the Rangers,
Yeah.
then Buffalo, then Detroit. No, we have 4 games or 3 games.
4.
4. Okay, so yes, and then the Panthers.
I don't think it matters who you're playing, though, because Buffalo is going to be playing to play spoiler. And so is any team that's not going to make the playoffs. So you're going to get their best shot because they want to move you down a peg in the playoffs. So I really don't think it matters. But, and I don't really think it matters where the Bolts land as far as playoff seeding either. But I would have liked to see them take first place just to get the home ice advantage. And even that, like, how much does home ice advantage mean? Because look at the last 2 years. The Lightning have won one game at home in the playoffs. That was when Sergachev came back miraculously last season for that last
Yeah, but
game.
we didn't have home ice advantage. They were already down 2 games coming back.
Who
Uh,
cares? We've won one home game in the playoffs in 2 seasons. So does it really matter?
well, the year before that we had home ice and we won out of the first round. So maybe it does.
No. Well, yeah, in the 3 years ago.
Right. The two
I'm not
years that we
counting.
had, and we talked about this last week, and we talked about it again on the sports web that um, this year more than other they play better at home, minus tonight. Well, I mean they still got a point, so we can't take that away from them. They didn't get the W. They
Yeah.
still got a point. If we would have been talking about this 2 months ago, a point was a point was a point. It's still a point. Every last point's gonna between us, Florida, and Toronto is going to determine the seeding for these playoffs. So every point counts. So getting 1 point was still gaining. Maybe not on Toronto, but you did pull a little bit away from the Panthers now.
Did you think the Lightning were the better team tonight?
No. Well, the first period, no. The second and third, yes. The first period, I thought the Lightning just were finding their feet. And I don't know if it was the change of lines. I thought tonight's game, Bjorkstam was the player of the game. 2 goals, and I believe an assist. I think he was the player of the game tonight. And we've kind of seen that in the last couple of days where I think he's now fitting into the system and getting his feet wet here in Tampa. And we've seen him now scoring more. We've seen him more active in the plays. So I thought the second and third period, the Lightning were the better team. But the first period, we're in a hole 2-0, and then ended the period 2-1.
Yeah, I thought we were the better team. And Toronto scored those first 2 goals. And like I said earlier, they were just chasing the rest of the game. I thought the Lightning looked good most of the game. But again, it was a kick in the ass more than an ass kicking. It wasn't an ass kicking at all. But to me, it was really it should have been, and hopefully that's what they're talking about right now in some of the post game interviews. Is hey, this was a little bit of a wake up call. We've you can't give up 2 goals like that early in the game in the playoffs. You're not going to be able to come back because teams are going to go into full defensive mode and play a lot better. So um, I don't think it's a horrible thing that they lost this game the way that they did because I still got to feel like they feel pretty confident in how they played against Toronto. Um, and knowing that they can beat them and knowing what went wrong this game was really easy for them to go take a look at. And Nigel's probably going to be working on that tonight to pull that video. So not a disaster, not the results that we wanted or expected, but it's not the worst thing in the world for Bolts fans right now because I still think we're going to be in good shape when we get to the playoffs. We're still playing very good going into the playoffs. It's just we got to figure out how to beat Toronto. We got to figure out how to beat Florida. Hey, we even got to figure out how to beat the Senators because we're going to have to beat 2 out of 3 of them. So a lot to work on in the next couple weeks as we reach the end of the season here.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's been any kind of interviews coming out. The only interview so far I've seen is that no update on Glendenning.
Yeah, they're probably doing them right now. I tried to get a press box pass for today and was denied. Not surprising. I'm sure. I didn't even look at the press box tonight, but I'm sure it's full of Toronto media folks, which is why we would get denied, which is stupid. But we're just a lowly podcast, so. But it'll
What
still a
was
good game.
the atmosphere in there? Was it 50-50 like usual?
Well, the funny thing about Toronto fans is they blend in so well because
Yeah.
that damn jersey color is almost exactly the same as ours. So you couldn't tell. They were trying to get some chants going throughout the game. I wouldn't say I thought there were more Bolts fans. I'd say it was definitely 70-30 at least. But it's tough to tell with Toronto because they really just blend in amongst us. And Toronto fans aren't always the loudest fans, right? It's not Philly. So,
No, but I did hear a kind of loud cheer when Nye scored.
oh yeah, I mean there was a lot of commotion for every goal. So, I mean there's Toronto fans there, of course. You know what we should do? Put some tariffs on these tickets.
I don't want to point out, but I'll point it out. Stammer had 2 goals tonight. But anyways,
Good for him.
where's Jake now, people? No,
Yeah, they could have used Jake. Hey man, maybe Jake Ensel's the difference tonight. I don't know. It was that close, and you're right about Bjorkstrand. He was noticeable on the ice. And when you're watching at the game, it's different, right? You don't have Engblom and you don't have Randorf in your ear talking about the game. So when a player kind of sticks out, uh, they're really having a game. I also thought we had a lot of missed opportunities that you might not have seen on TV. There was a play towards the very end of regulation where Kucherov is flying down the side and he's wrapping around the Toronto net with the chance to get a wraparound, but he passes it before he actually goes behind the net. It looked like the position that Toronto's goalie was in, if he, and the speed that Cooch had, if he kept that, he had a very good chance to put in the game-winning goal. That was less than 5 minutes left in a wraparound goal.
I was
There were
actually
also,
listening to Mish and Espo on tonight, and Espo was like, "No, no, no, you shoot that." So I know exactly what play you're talking about there.
Yeah, and there were also, and these are even harder to pick up on TV. There were a lot of missed stretch passes where some guys were open, and I don't care if you flip it up in the air like they sometimes do, or if you just try to thread that needle. There were some guys that banged their stick on the ice because they were open and didn't get a chance to get the puck because they weren't, maybe they just weren't seen. I don't know. But there were definitely some missed offensive opportunities. But again, they also had a ton of offensive opportunities either way to win this game. So I don't know. That's just how hockey goes sometimes.
So now there's one playoff spot left in the East, and it's basically a three-team race, four-team race. Montreal, Detroit, Islanders, and the Blue Jackets. What a story that Blue Jackets would be if they can get that last wild card spot. But
Yeah, that'd be cool to see.
Montreal is in the driver's seat. Um, they win one more game, and I think that will, yeah, that guarantees them. So if Montreal wins, even gets another point, they will clinch.
And they play
So
tomorrow.
they play. No, they do not.
Oh, they
They
must
don't.
play that then.
They play Friday against Ottawa. I think they have back-to-back games Friday and Saturday. I think Friday it's Ottawa and Saturday it's Toronto.
So that means we have Detroit here on Friday night with
Yeah.
their season on the line.
Well, no. Well, if Montreal wins Friday, they're in. Let's see
They're
who
playing
has.
at the same time as us, though.
Yeah, they have the same time. So if Montreal wins, they're in. If they lose, Detroit wins. Detroit still has to win every single game, and the Canadians can't win another game.
Yeah, Detroit's playing for their season coming
Yeah.
here Friday night. So none of these games for Toronto, for us, for Florida are going to be easy because even the teams that are eliminated want to be the spoilers. So I think the key is continue to gel and keep their momentum up going into the playoffs and stay healthy. So losing a fourth line center isn't ideal, but it could be worse. And then if you hadn't heard the news earlier today, Isaac Howard is
Returning
not
back
going to
to
be on the Bolts anytime this season.
no.
That doesn't mean they're losing him, but they do have to sign him before April 2026.
Yeah. He's returning to play another season at Michigan State.
And I'm fine with that because you bring up Isaac Howard. How does that mess with the chemistry of this team? Who do you send down? Sure, I'd take him if we could get him, but it's definitely a salary cap issue. And one of the NHL insiders had tweeted, and I might have retweeted it under the We the Thunder pod account, that there is a plan with Howard and the Lightning. They're not going to let him get away. But that plan could be to trade him. The trade is right, but uh, they're not going to let him just walk, which could happen if he doesn't get signed by the next summer.
So it was college hockey news um, said that Isaac Howard is going back to Michigan State for senior season.
Yeah, there was another one from an NHL insider from ESPN or NHL Network, not a local guy, or gal, but that had mentioned there is some sort of plan in the works with the Lightning. So that one I think just came down to if they were gonna sign him, it would have been probably on the last day of the season because they'd only have the salary cap to sign him on the last day of the season. Which again, how are you gonna just insert this guy into the lineup basically for the playoffs. So it would have been a nice to have, especially if he could have started playing last week. But I don't think it's the end of the world that Isaac Howard's not going to play for the Lightning this season.
Yeah, and it's already confirmed. I see. I was just looking. It's confirmed that Carolina will face New Jersey in the first round, no matter what else happens in the East. Um, and because New Jersey clinched tonight, which Sheldon Keith, former Toronto's head coach, this is sixth season consecutive season of making the Stanley Cup playoffs, and he's only been a head coach for 6 seasons. So every year he has made the NHL playoffs. Of course, 5 of those with Toronto, and now 1 with New Jersey.
Tampa Bay Lightning legend.
Yeah, yeah, and it's gonna going against Carolina. That's not gonna be an easy feat for New Jersey.
No, I think the playoffs are all going to be great. I mean, it's really anyone's playoffs to win or lose. All these teams in the East are pretty even. It's going to come down to who kind of steps it up and gets it done. And I like our chances. We've got success in the playoffs. We've got a lot of guys that have experience and experience winning in the playoffs. And I like the mix that we have of these hungry guys like Hagel who haven't won the cup yet infused in there. Put Jurgensen in there. Sorry, I don't remember who wrote the article about Jurgensen choosing the Lightning because he'd never made the
I think it was
playoffs before.
Encina. I think it was Encina.
Yeah, I mean, these guys that weren't here for the cup years, which is most of them, they're hungry to win the cup. And then the guys that we have know what it takes. So these guys need to step up, and I have all the faith in the world that we can definitely win the cup this year. And we've seen in the past where we slide into the playoffs playing much worse than we're playing now, and it's almost like a different team shows up. I think 2022 would probably be the best example of that, even though we didn't win the cup that year.
Yeah, I was just trying to read any more updates, and there's no more updates.
What was the hits? Did we out hit them?
Let me see. Hits was 18 for Toronto, 25 for the Lightning.
I knew it. And it felt like we did not hit enough. I don't care if we hit more than them, but I think to beat Toronto, we have to be a little bit more physical. You can't let Nylander skate around as much as he likes to because he loves that. And this freaking Matthew Knees guy kills us, and he's not even that good of a player.
No, he's a Lightning killer though. I was looking at the upcoming games, and Detroit, their leading scorer is DeBrincat, who is a Lightning killer. So you're gonna have these teams that really has those players that are just get under our skin. But here's a telling sign from tonight's game: block shots, 33 for Toronto, 15 for the Lightning.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. They were blocking a lot of shots. It was noticeable. And none of those count as shots on goals. Between the block shots and the shots that just completely missed the net, I'd like to just know what that number was, but it doesn't really matter. And in the grand scheme of things, does this game really matter? I don't know. Probably not.
Face-offs was another thing. 31 face-offs, 20 for the Lightning, and we talked about that's the part where you miss Glendening.
For sure. Yeah.
Because
I honestly think the main difference between these two teams is when you make a mistake against Toronto, they 95% of the time make you pay for it. And with the Lightning, it's like we 60% of the time make you pay for it and come real damn close when we don't make you pay for it. I really think that's the difference between these two teams. Like Toronto's got that killer instinct when they get these prime scoring chances, and the Lightning just don't. They're just not there. They're just not at that level of putting it in the back of the net like Toronto is.
So, do we want to go over our upcoming games, or we want to talk about some things that happened around the league since last week? Like some Russian overtaking Gretzky.
I would wanted to talk about my other favorite Russian, Vlad Nepestikov, having a great season. And what a career, by the way, Vlad's having. No, I guess we could talk about it if you want. I watched the game when I found out that it was Sunday afternoon. I brushed off some chores and sat my butt down because I knew it was going to happen. And what was it, like 2 minutes into the second period?
Yeah,
And it was an awesome goal. It wasn't
it
vintage
was a power play goal.
Ovechkin. Yeah, well, it wasn't vintage Ovechkin because he kind of had to reach a little bit more for it, but it was awesome. And I'm not a Caps fan. If you've been watching this show for a long time, you probably know that I grew up in that area, and my first hockey games that I ever went to were Capitals games, but that was way before Ovechkin was there. Um, but I think it was an awesome moment. I was kind of surprised that they just stopped the whole damn game for 20, 30 minutes. But, if you think about the magnitude of what had just happened, that was deserved. So I thought it was cool. I'm really glad I got to watch it live in person, being as big of a hockey fan as I was. And I'm
Think
glad
about
he beat the
Coop,
record.
Coop, JBB, the whole Lightning coaching staff was in the suite with Wayne Gretzky watching the game since they had just gotten their asses kicked by Buffalo. Um, and they were playing the Rangers the next day. They took in the game, and of course, Gretzky and Coop are good friends. I just wanted to go by the numbers real quick on Gretzky's and Ovi's. This was sent out. Even strength goals. You had 498 from Ovi, 560 from Gretzky. Power play goals. With the record break, and you had 325 for Ovi, 204 for Gretzky. Shorthanded. This is what amazes me, but then doesn't amaze me. Gretzky 73, Ovi 5. Because Ovi's not really a PK person.
No.
Penalty shots, 2 for Ovi, 1 for Gretzky. An empty net, 56 for Gretzky, 65 for Ovi. And that power play, you had 204 to 325. I mean, think about this. Ovi plays the whole 2 minutes, almost every power play of every Capitals game. And that didn't really happen too much. And you see Cooch doing that now a lot. Now he's starting to play the full 2 minutes on those power plays and double shifting. So it was cool to see it finally happen. I would expect that next year will be his retirement. People are saying that if they win the cup, they think he may retire this year. I think these big players that have been playing for a long time like to do that farewell tour. We saw Fleury doing it this year, and so I think he ends up announcing it, and next year does his farewell tour.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I also think he could. I mean, as long as the Capitals keep inviting him back and he wants to keep doing it, I could see him playing into his 40s and
I don't
keeping it
think they
going.
do. I think it's going to end up with like a Stamkos situation here in the next year or two. Oh, there we go. that we lost you
I'm back.
again. And how far do
Yeah,
you
I mean,
live from the dang arena?
I live pretty far. So that's the dedication I have. I did actually just pull on my driveway, but I only have less than 10% battery yet left. So let's see how long we can drag this out. um, what was I going to say? I mean, yeah, it was cool. I'm happy it happened. I was somebody that thought that that record would never be broken when I first found it not a couple years ago, but like 20 years ago, because I didn't really watch Gretzky. When I was watching Gretzky, I knew he was the best, right? I knew he was the great one, but this was like his like New York days. And didn't he go to like St. Louis for a minute too? So
Yes.
I never really knew Oilers Gretzky. And people have told me that that Oilers team was stacked, right? Messier, Coffee, Gretzky, who else was on that team? So they were a pretty stacked team, but obviously, if you look at Gretzky, just look at the number of points he's had. And it's just silly because that record might never be broken. And again, I had always said, even last year, I was saying that I don't know if Ovechkin's going to be able to break that goals record because remember he had such an off year last year. He had probably
Right.
his worst years of his career, and I just assumed like, oh, that might be it for him. Once you get to a certain age, it's stuff's a lot tougher to do. But man, what a season he's had, and I'm really happy for him. But I do not want this to end in a Stanley Cup for the Washington Capitals. They need to win the President's Cup and um, uh, fall victim to that curse, as far as I'm concerned. And then Ovi can go retire. He scored enough goals.
You see what Budweiser did, where they did those cans of beers for players that have never been goalies that have never been scored on by Ovi.
Yeah, Matthew Garon had one, and he was on Jay Ratcher's show. I didn't watch it yet, but I heard.
And then you had another Tampa tie, which was Garrett Sparks. And then there's a third one who's Matt Condon, who was traded to Tampa Bay by Ottawa for Ryan Callahan in 2020. I mean, in 2019. That was when they took Callahan just to get his cap dump from us when he was out injured. So there was a couple players on there. The one that I thought was really, really funny that was on the list was Braden Hope, who
Was it?
they had played together so long, won the Stanley Cup together, and then he ends up he was 0 for 2 against Hopi as not teammates. So I laughed when I saw Hopi on that list, and I was like, and Sorokin would have been another
Yep.
goalie that would have gotten that. That was we had talked about it on last week's show. That was his first goal ever against Sorokin. And then asked Sorokin for his stick, which I really don't get that one. Like I don't know why you would ask for Sorokin's stick, but Sorokin obliged and gave him the stick. And then right in the middle of that whole celebration, the NHL comes over and says, here's another jersey. Give us that one that you're wearing. It's going straight to the Hall of Fame. So they had the camera there on Ovi changing his jersey out because the NHL made them grab that jersey. So congrats to him.
Yeah, that was a huge moment. I mean, what was it? 31 years since Gretzky did it, and then 31 years before that, Gretzky took it from Gordie Howe. So,
Right.
in 31 years from now, Austin Matthews is going to take it over. No, I'm just kidding. Hopefully not. But Matthews is on a pretty good pace from what I've seen
Yes,
as far as
he's
games played.
actually ahead of where Ovi was at this point in their careers.
Yeah, but you know, it's a different story when you talk about having to play as long as Ovi's played at that level. Not everyone is able to do that. So I wish Matthews all the luck. I just hope he gets traded to the new Arizona franchise whenever that happens.
So let's go over these last
Um,
4 games and then get out of here. Detroit Friday at home at Amalie Arena, 7 o'clock game. Then we have a 6 o'clock game Sunday on the 13th. I will be at that game. Then we have, and that's going to be the fan appreciation night on the 13th. They have not announced anything for it. Then the 15th at home against the Panthers. That's the final home game. And then we have the away game to finish the season against the Rangers. So when we have our next show next Wednesday, we'll know basically everything because we'll only have one game left of the season, but everything should be panned out. All the matchups should be made. You have that last game against the Panthers the night before our show, so everything should be fall into place by next Wednesday.
yeah, and we should have JP Peterson on next Wednesday too. I probably have to send him a reminder, but I think he's going to jump on with us next Wednesday, and then we do go into our post season mode where we'll be live after every game. You'll probably see me at my computer for that first round, and Thomas probably at the games for that first round. So hopefully it's a little bit smoother. But that's how we started doing this thing, was these post game shows after playoff games. So I hope we're doing a lot of them coming up, because the last 2 seasons have been a little too short.
Yeah.
Oh, breaking news. Perbix scored the first goal of the game. Did you hear the goal song?
No, I did not.
We went back to the old one.
To Bose?
Oh, 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 oh.
Oh, really?
Yep. Back
What is
to, I
going on?
mean, that was the one that we had when we won the Cups, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's what we're sticking with.
Well, what is it? Do we know?
If it's
I'm not
not
even
broke,
sure. I'm not sure anybody knows. I think when we lose, that it's the same thing that they do when we lose with the Bolts flag. If we lose, it goes on the opposite side the next game, and it goes on this side in between. If we lose, do they change the goal song until we lose again, and then change the goal song
I don't know.
again?
I have no idea what they're doing at this point. It's been a different goal song the last 3 games. So
JP's
and
in
I don't
there, and
think it
that
matters.
JP's there in that Lightning Vision booth. Let's ask him what the story
Let's
is.
ask
What's
him
going on?
what the hell is going on with this goal song. How about Braden Point getting in a fight? It's
Yeah.
kind of, yeah. He was feisty. I like that.
April had, I don't know if April's watching now, but the Lightning had posted today the Lady Byng Memorial Trophy candidate is for the Lightning, Braden Point. McDonough is the Masterton Trophy nominee. But Point is, and here was the thing for Point. Most goals, 41 in .79 in NHL history for a player with 2 or few penalty minutes. And today, he has 16 power play goals, 41 goals. Only NHL or with over 50 games played and 2 or few penalty minutes. Apparently, he didn't like this post today because he just had to get himself a
He did.
7 minutes in penalties today.
That's funny.
So apparently that post kind of offended him. So he was like, okay, now there's only one player who has less than 2 penalty minutes.
Can I do a PSA before I got 3%? So I might just disappear soon. My phone's getting. I need a new phone. I'm like 2-3 years in on this phone, so it's kind of ready to crap out. That's why my battery's dying here. I'm at 2%. But I need to give a PSA to Bolts fans. Let's stop being idiots at games, because the last couple games I've been at, like, there's been some fans making asses of themselves. The first one I'm going to mention tonight, I don't know if this person was ill. I don't know what their situation was, but I saw someone get on the elevator. Maybe they're scared of, or not, sorry, not elevators, escalators. Maybe they're scared of escalators, and basically, um, I guess, lose their balance, throwing their entire hamburger everywhere and fries and falling down. And then somebody else that they were with fell down. The whole escalator stops. And that is how I missed basically both goals.
So you're blaming someone else for you being late. Is he froze? Did he die on us? I'm guessing. I'm guessing his phone died. So we are going to be next week. Not sure of the time. Keep an eye on We the Thunder Pod on Twitter to find out what time tomorrow, next Wednesday, and hopefully we'll have JP Peterson on, and we'll have all the playoff matchups. So until then, don't forget to be the Thunder. You guys have a good night. Thanks.